5 years ago, this is who I was, and this is who I am now. And apart from the most obvious differences like the haircut, face paint, and, well, joint in my mouth, there are a ton of differences that go completely unnoticed. Things like having more peace, joy, better relationships with my parents and siblings, subjective feelings of my mental and physical health, and so many more measurements of my quality of life are completely invisible in both of those pictures. The reason I bring up these pictures is because I, and probably most people, have a tendency to look back at any point in my life and think, those were the golden years. But if we're willing to take a step back and consider how we might have actually felt during those periods, we were probably pretty miserable. This is a problem with our memories because it's so easy to look back at pictures and videos of us having fun and come to the conclusion that's what it was like all the time during that season. Nowadays, we can hear and see memories of the past in the highest quality possible, but there's no way to feel those memories or any experience in the past. So we have to guess how we felt during those times, and by the nature of what people choose to take pictures and videos of, we assume that we were happy, content, and genuinely enjoying life. But in almost every case, that is not true at all. And Morgan Housel talks about this in one of his newsletters. He says, "A few months ago, I reminisced to my wife about how awesome that time was. We were 23, gainfully employed, living in our version of the Taj Mahal. This was before kids, so we slept in until 10 a.m. on the weekends, went for a walk, had brunch, took a nap, and went out for dinner. That was our life. For years. That was peak living. As good as it gets," I told her. "What are you talking about?" she said. "You were more anxious, scared, and probably depressed then than you've ever been." And of course, she was right. So we are incapable of remembering how it felt during those seasons of waiting, those seasons of pain, and those seasons of grinding. And because we only remember and see the best times from those periods, we are totally misguided on how we really felt. And Morgan brings up another reason why this happens. We know the ending. In those times when I was drinking, smoking, partying, and gaming my life away, I thought that I would be a loser. I was a loser. I was full of doubt and had no hope for a future of peace, joy, or a good relationship with my parents. The fears I felt about my future were totally valid. I took no steps to better myself physically, and I had no drive to learn or build towards anything. But since I am able to look back at those fears now and see how stupid they were, I assume that since I shouldn't have been worried, I probably wasn't worried. And again, that is not the case at all. Even acute problems like arguments with my girlfriend were emotionally debilitating at that time. She was a huge part of my life, and thinking about her suddenly leaving was so terrifying. And when I broke up with her, I was pretty heartbroken. A big chunk was ripped out of me. How am I supposed to recover from that? But now that I've healed, I see that the fear of never recovering was unreasonable. I mean, of course I would heal. We always do. But that's not how it felt in the moment. You may be asking yourself what I'm trying to get at. What's the whole point of this? I will get to that, but there is one more massive contributor to the lack of appreciation for the present moment that I haven't mentioned yet, and that is social media. And I know you've heard it all before with social media, but just stick with me because there is a very interesting perspective that I have on this one. If pictures and videos from our own past can skew reality and our perception of how we felt back then, how much more can pictures and videos of other people skew our perception of how they feel right now in this moment? And although social media has plenty of upsides, the seemingly unavoidable problem with social media is the comparison game. We see the best moments of our friends and our enemies' lives, and something in the back of our head tells us that we are not as happy as they are. And on surface level, this is actually a correct observation, but obviously there's more to happiness than what people choose to post. And to more clearly explain this, please tell me the value of y in this equation. You can't tell me the value of y because you don't know the value of x. Now consider this equation. Obviously, happiness is more complex than this equation, but this is essentially what our brains are solving when we see anyone do anything that seems exciting. Our internal calculators add two numbers, but it only knows the value of one of the numbers. It assumes that if someone appears to be satisfied, then they must be. And this is so inaccurate that the truth is nearly always the complete opposite. Those who prioritize appearing happy are usually those who are the most unhappy. So our lack of ability to remember how we felt in the past, mixed with hindsight, mixed with social media, is a surefire way to be unhappy with who you are and where you are now. This is something that I still struggle with, and I know most people do. I feel like I'm in the real world now, and I have so many responsibilities that I didn't have in the past. I'm constantly anxious about the future, and I assume that I always used to be excited and confident about life. But that's just not true at all. So what's the solution? Now, this is not easy, but think back to some of your best memories. Then try to remember what else was going on in your life at the time. Maybe your memory is a vacation to Italy. That's great. Until you remember, that was also the time that one of your parents were sick. You were fighting with your partner the entire trip, and you couldn't get it out of the back of your head that you might have left the stove on at home. And the point of this part of the exercise is not to ruin these memories that you have, but to realize that even on a vacation, you might wake up with a headache or worry about things that aren't a big deal. It doesn't make the vacation not worth it. And if those things happen at the peak, they're sure to happen in the valley. The second part of this exercise, which arguably is more helpful, is to do the same thing, but think about the worst times in your life. Those times where you were super stressed and you didn't think you were going to make it through. Then decide if those fears you felt in those seasons were necessary. Many times, and probably most, the answer is no. The terror of close calls with cops, the anger I felt towards my parents, and the looming anxiety that I would never truly grow up were all fears that now I look back on and realize they were totally unreasonable. And this is how it all ties together. If we can look back at our past fears and anxieties and realize that they were totally unreasonable and useless, then it is safe to assume that in 5 to 10 years, we are going to be saying the same exact things about the fears that we are feeling today. How incredible is that? Humans are very fragile, but also very resilient. Most things we can and will get through. And the fear, at least for me, doesn't help push us to be better. We never reach for our goals because it convinces us that our arms are too short. These are the golden years, and not because everything's perfect and we're totally satisfied with who we are and how the world is, but because this is literally the only time in your life that you will be this young, this healthy, on this day, watching this video for the first time. So looking back at that picture from 5 years ago of me with Joker face paint on and a joint in my mouth, on the surface, I assume he was having a blast. But the cop showed up that night, and he was totally convinced that he was a loser and things wouldn't get better. And if he saw me now, he'd probably think that I'm happy and proud of myself for how far I've come. But he doesn't know that I'm constantly anxious about the future and convinced that I'm a loser, just like he was. And I know that whoever I am in 5 years will look back and think the same thing, that those fears weren't helping and they just made each day more difficult. But my hope for us all is that we don't wait 5 years to internalize it. The goal isn't to look to our past or future for better days, but to realize that they're here right now. And Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning says, ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is being asked.